stepping stones, Montessori, and multi-grade. Because Joey is going to have what grades again, Joey, this school year?
K1.
K1. And Kay, what are you teaching there in Arkansas?
I teach first and second, but when I used this curriculum, I was teaching pre-K, K, and 1. So that's what I did. The whole time we were writing this, I had a few 3- and 4-year-olds and I don't know, 4 or 5 5-year-olds, and then the rest were first and second. So it was a big span. But basically, these books were written, if the theory is that if you have a 5-year-old, they're developmentally between 2 and 7. So we really have a pretty broad spectrum of stuff in here. So obviously there's more that first and second graders need than is in this, but there's still a lot of things like the Bible, the science and social studies was very appropriate for my first and second graders. I usually had some other activities that were more difficult, but I brought up some of my stuff. This is just my ocean stuff. I don't know if you can see it on the floor. Anyway, I have these great big plastic boxes full of stuff for, basically every book has a box like that in the kindergarten curriculum. So I just have tons of stuff that range from, for 3- and 4-year-olds to, first and second grade. So some of it the school has, but most of it I've kept just because I don't know what I'm going to be doing next. So, I also use it for things like Sabbath school, and this is just basic ideas that I put in here. Most of the pictures in here, like I picked the book We Are Family because it has it has a couple things that I thought Celeste would like for Hawaii, because there's the Chinese New Year, a lot of that in there. And there's also the Dad and Me in the Morning has got a beach setting, so you can take off on all kinds of beach things. And what I did and what our kindergarten teacher here does is we don't try to do all 10 themes in one year. We split it up. It takes so much time to get everything set up that by the time you set it up, it's time to take it down. So when I was field testing, I would do a theme for 2 or 3 months. And when it finally got done and I tried to do it all in one year, I didn't like it because I was always hauling boxes back and forth and taking stuff down. And we just agreed. My aide during this time was a certified teacher. And when we got big enough, she took the pre-K and K and I took the first and second. So she decided she just didn't really like, so we have kind of like a 2-year rotation in our pre-K and kindergarten, so that the Bible is the thing that you can only stretch it so far, but all the other things have way more than enough stuff to do for months, especially, if you have other resources available to you, even just going to the library and getting books. I have, I don't know, these were just some of my books for the beach, and these are ones I got from when I was in Hawaii, but What Am I? Animal Guessing Game, The Big Blue Turtle, Sand to Sea. These are, I would have these out for reading and also extensions for whatever you decide to go on. Basically, with Montessori, we read the book, and then Rob and Jody and I, the people that wrote most of these, would just brainstorm in all kinds of activities that went with the theme and had some sort of, connection. At the beginning of every book, though, there's an overriding theme for that whole unit, We Are Family. But then there's also there's a key concept: families care for each other. God gives us families. Families help each other. But those key concepts keep getting, and they're always at the front in the red section. And we say those over and over and over again. A bulletin board might say families care for each other. And then I just try to find all kinds of books that talk about families care for each other. And I just say that over and over. That's what families do, And when we're in Bible, we say that. When we're in science or social studies, we keep saying families care for each other, families care for each other, families help each other as grandfather counts, Sam and the Lucky Money as families celebrate together. But it says spiritual connection. So usually there's an introduction that tells you about the whole, I don't know if you can see, there you go. That's the beginning, the red part. But then there's this section right here that basically we try and say those phrases over and over. It's called Key Concepts and Bible Verses. So that's something that, like I said, just gets set. I do that in Encounter Bible too. There's a theme for the year, God is trustworthy. And I just try to say that over and over. We can trust God. And I say it at recess time. And sometimes we don't trust each other very well, but we can always trust God, and just put it in any situation that it fits. But most of the pictures in here are pictures of, my classroom. I don't know what questions you have, so I should probably just shut up. I have tons of things, like, for instance, We Are Family starts with the ocean, but my mom made all these little sea stars. So, they're made out of, they're knitted or crocheted, I guess. But, there may be people in your church that can do that, get them involved in making sea stars. So I have a whole bag full of sea stars, and I gave them to the kids when we did this unit. But, I have a plastic one that's more realistic looking, and then we, have all these funny ones that my mom made. But again, those are probably, if you have older kids, they could make those themselves. Younger kids, you would get a grandma to come and help them make that, or else just make them for the younger kids and let them watch them. But that's the kind of extension that, a creative mind, you just start going on what you can do. And my mom, I remember, here's a big one. I'm sure she made these all. I probably just said, Mom, can you make a sea star? Another thing I wanted to tell you about, are you familiar with Pinterest?
Mm-hmm.
My name is Sutherland with a U. So it's K Sutherland. But if you go to Pinterest, I have a board for each theme. And I got up my board for this one, and there are like 417 posts. Pins, right? They're pins, right? And they're not all for the first book, but they're all for We Are Family. So they're done by theme. But you can go down all kinds of rabbit holes with these. There's Montessori ones. There's whole Montessori things already done. You can just print their stuff. They'll give them to you for free for activities to put on your shelves. It's kind of the way Montessori works is I usually have a math shelf that has all kinds of math related things. And I have a science, social studies shelf. And either these fit well with science or social studies. So We Are Family is a social studies theme, but obviously when we're talking about the beach, that's a science theme. So usually I have a science social studies shelf, and then I have a language arts shelf that includes writing and letter sound things. So this one naturally lends itself, if you've got young children, to have a tray like this and fill it with real fine sand, or if you have black sand, you can fill this tray, and then with their finger they can write the letters in the sand. Yeah, and that's a big Montessori thing, and it's very tactile, so it's a really good way to get that in their brain. So anyway, kinds of things.
Okay, I have a quick question. Is We Are Family the first in the series?
No, We Are Family's number 5. So it's actually made to go in January when Chinese New Year is. So that's why we put it there. So it's the 5th one. But I know.
What is the first one?
The first one is Heroes, Let's Be Friends. It's on the back of the book. It tells you.
Okay. Would it be, is it vital? Would you recommend going in that order of how it's written?
The beginning, Off We Go has a lot of beginning of the year routines. So that one's pretty, it's an extra one because there's 9 of them. But plus an intro. So there's actually 10. So the intro one has a lot of how to set up your classroom. So that one's pretty important to do first. And after that, you know, I'm sure it does develop and get a little bit harder, but not hugely. I don't think it's essential. I mean, you need to know what your kids can and can't do, but I don't think you have to. I picked this simply because it had a lot of things that were found on your islands that you could just go get and wouldn't be very expensive if she was trying to start from scratch.
Right. Okay.
You know, if you're doing early childhood, you know, you can get these things at Walmart. Have you seen them? They're just little bead things. A lot of times they're found in the, I don't know if you can see those. They're found in the flower section. But a Montessori thing that we do a lot is they call it tonging or tweezing, but it develops that.
Yes.
It develops that pincer muscle. And so, you know, you get 2 pretty bowls and then put these in a third bowl. I'm sorry, the light is kind of funny. Put them in a third bowl and then they tong them from, you know, one bowl, or they sort them. You know, you can use a pair of tweezers. And what I found with the really young children, not to put so many, you know, I wouldn't put, for older kids, they might do this whole thing, but the young kids get sick of it way before they finish. So, you know, maybe just have 10 that they do, or have multiple ones with different colors and different tongs. But, you know, you can get all that at Walmart, different colored tongs and tweezers and scoops, even a spoon, you know. You can also, with smaller ones, you can pour them to a specific line.
Right.
And I think I got these from Lakeshore, but, you know, they're all little plastic sea creatures.
Okay.
And you can sort those by color. You can sort them by animal. These are the things that you can also count them, you know, put them with number cards, you know, that type of thing. You can also, you can get gravel, see the gravel? And you can pour that gravel into a bowl that has like a piece of tape around it, or a glass would probably be a better, just a small, like orange juice glass, fruit juice glass, just put tape around it, then you could pour. So the smaller this is a probably pretty good pouring size for kindergarten. Or, you know, you can tong things. You can have a whole bin of this stuff and have these inside of it. And then they can pick out these creatures with tongs from, I think there's a picture in here of, we got these at Walmart. You guys have to pay shipping when you buy from Amazon? Like, does Prime shipping ship to Hawaii for free, or do they not have any free shipping to Hawaii?
Depends on the item.
Yeah, Amazon is like my best friend. I'm always getting stuff off of Amazon. But here you can see a picture of tonging things into a cup that's just plain sand.
Right.
And here I just bought a picture frame, and they make a picture. You just have that's more artsy, or they could tell a story with the picture. I was looking for, here's a picture of a letter and one of the kids drawing in the sand tray, just copying the letter. So one thing that these do that you would have to think about is we do a letter every week. And of course, by the end of the school year, we have some that are repeated, but you kind of have to have some master plan for what you're doing, because if you don't do all of them in a year, you're not going to get the whole alphabet, you know what I mean? So we picked letters that we felt repeated themselves often. But like this one is S because there's seagull and there's sand and there's seashells. And so S is one of the, you know, the letters that they practice all month. I was trying to find that tray thing to show you what I meant. But the way the book is divided up is Let me find that page. I was going to mark it. I should have. Oh, there it is. Can you see the little, they call them sand water tables, and you put
Mhm.
sand in one side, and we use, you know, those water beads. They love the water beads, and that's not quite as messy. It depends on if you have an outside porch, water's great, or if you have a non-carpeted floor. But you can use water beads, or you can use bigger beads. Instead of gravel, you can get bigger beads from Walmart, you know, the round discs. Again, you can find those in the flower section.
So with the sand and water table, it's more just exploration around that theme.
I quit putting them in my first and second grade room because that's what they would always pick. I think it's appropriate for kindergarten, but if you were doing first and second, I would do something like they'd have to write a story first, or they'd have to copy words. Like you could put word cards with the shells and you know, that they would have to copy, depending again what time of year. They might have to make a sentence, or just write words at the beginning of the year, or just write letters. If they're 4 or 5, they could just play in it. I think that's appropriate. Or play with the big cube and just match 1 or 2. One way to do that is just to take a camera and take a picture of each thing. I don't have an example of that, but and then make a word card, and they have to match them together. But you can, whatever you have, like you can't see very much here, but there's 2 dolls. So, you know, you could write girl, and you could write the names of the different shells or the different sea creatures. And if you take a picture of it with a name card, then that makes it key, so you don't have to be there. And you could make them, they call them 3-part cards. So in Montessori, a 3-part card is a picture and a word together as one card. And then the other 2 cards is just the picture and the word. So they try to match the picture and the word by themselves, but then to check it, they take the 3rd one where they're hooked together. Does that make sense? And there's a lot of them in we use 3-part cards all the time in this program. So some of them will already be there, but you can always do that on your own if you haven't, if this particular thing doesn't have it, or you may have different objects that might be more appropriate that your kids would identify with more. You can do that with any subject, you know, when you're trying to learn the names of things. So 3-part cards are great for anything you're trying to teach vocabulary with. And the older kids learn to read them and write them, and the younger kids, they can just match them. But in the process of matching, they start learning, you know, looking at beginning letters and that kinds of thing. So I don't know.
All of that is your own prep. All of that is your own prep that you
Some
you
of
make.
it is. Some of it's in here. I have not taught this for a few years, so I don't remember if there's 3-part cards in this one, but there are a lot of 3-part cards in the curriculum. They're going to be in the on the CDs. I think the CDs are online now, so you just have to download them. I'm looking to see if I just see any 3-part cards, but sometimes we provide them.
Okay.
These are not technically 3-part cards, but they're like them. See, they have a picture and a word, and this one has a definition. But if you copied it again, one time you'd cut it apart and one time you wouldn't cut it apart. Does that make sense?
Right. Yep. So you're saying that if I go online to like the NAD site and find pathways, there'll be things for me to download that I can just print up?
I think I'll look it up if you look, and it's under stepping stones. So it would be under NAD, probably dashboard, stepping stones. I think it's stepping stones and not pathways, but it could be pathways with stepping stones as a subset. But I think stepping stones has its own heading. And then their black line masters is what they are. So they used to come in the back with a CD. See, mine has a CD holder. Somebody told me that they're all online now.
Okay.
So I haven't looked. I long ago, I just copied them all. So I have a notebook for each book so that I don't like looking on the, it's for me, it's a lot easier just to pull it off. Now we have a copy machine that you can send it from the computer to the copy machine directly, but it used to be a big pain to have to copy it on the printer and then take it to the copy room and copy it. And so I just printed them all at once. But they're all, whatever's in this book, see how they're shrunk? That's what, and it says, it has a little number in the corner and it says copy black line 4.25. So that's.
Okay, you just would locate it.
Yeah. So in the teacher manual, it tells you what's available, so you don't have to guess.
So, Kay, one question I have is, you know, when you have these different centers, like for math, for science, for language arts, how are the kids held accountable for the activity that they're involved in?
One thing that I do is I have a card, and you know, they're just required to do, like it'll say math and then it'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can number your shelf 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can just, when they do it, they show it to you and you check it off and date it so you know that they did 1 that day. And sometimes Montessori says with young children that they should be able to repeat things. The older kids in Montessori, they have a work plan that they have to complete. So for younger kids, for them to do something over and over is pretty normal until Montessori's theory is that if you, they'll quit doing it once they master it. And they have sensitive periods where they're really into something and you're supposed to let them do it. But in the 6 to 9 class, there's a plan. So you do 1 math and 1 science and 1, I mean, you know, you do 1 lesson or activity a day or 2 or 3 a week, depending on, you know, how your room is arranged. So it's kind of a different, that's why it's hard to have K1 in Montessori because they're different. You know, one is child driven and the other is work plan driven, you know what I mean? So for me, my older kids were always wanting to do these fun things, but they'd already mastered them. They just didn't want to work. You know, they'd rather go.
Right.
And so.
Right.
So then I would say you have to match the cards first and then you can make a choice. So, or I would say you have to do these things. So when they got their work done, they could make a choice kind of when they did the things required. So I have a work plan at the beginning of the day of what they have to do. And I might say, and you have to pick something from the math shelves or the science shelves, or, you know, you have to, this week you have to, you know, do such, but usually they want to do those things. They're trying to get their stuff done because it's very inviting to them. They really like doing that. But if you want to keep track of it, I have a card for math and reading and, or math and phonics and, language arts that they, you know, that I keep track of that has assessments, but that's a different program than this.
Okay, because that's more Montessori.
Right, yeah.
And so if you're not familiar with that and you're not Montessori trained, how could a teacher, what would you recommend to teachers who are just using like the stepping stones or pathways?
Or are you talking about multi-grade? Like
yeah, so like
classroom in kindergarten and first grade. Here's what I do. I teach Bible to everybody. And you know, I basically follow the plan. Like at the beginning, if you've looked at this, the Bible always goes through they introduce the Bible story and then they present the Bible story and review the Bible story. And then they, you know, have some practicing the Bible story. So I do that with everybody. And science and social studies, I do the same thing. And Montessori actually does that too. They don't really individualize all of their science and social studies. They have group lessons on the rug, and sometimes there'll be activities that they do afterwards, but the lesson is all the same. And then I just teach regular, when I had a multigrade, I would read the book that, like for this one, it starts with Dad and Me in the Morning. I would read that for social studies. So that was our social studies for everybody. You know, it talks about sign language and inclusiveness, and it has a lot of for social studies. And for science, you know, it was talking all about the ocean and whatever thing we wanted to get into. So that was my science and social studies. But my reading, everybody's on their own level for reading in Montessori, and in a traditional classroom, you just have a reading group, you know.
Right.
And same with math. In Montessori, everybody's individualized, but last year, because of COVID, I just used the regular Big Ideas math program, and everybody did math together. So, you know, that's the way I would manage it. And the only difference is you're teaching them all at once, and I just have a math time while everybody's doing their own thing at their own level. You know what I mean?
So you, when you're working with teachers who maybe have not been Montessori trained, you wouldn't necessarily hold them to the same, I guess, expectation, or expectation of how you manage the classroom versus how they might do it because they don't have the training?
You know, I have never had to be in charge of anyone else doing this except for my own classroom. So when we wrote this, there was a teacher at Loma Linda, Connie Rothgab, and she had a very traditional classroom, and she did centers all the time. So she just set these things up as centers. So, you know, when they made a sea star and used Cheerios, and, you know, that was just a center that they would go to at a table. And I think she had that whole card thing going on. Or you would just have an art class where I think you just have to do, the way I understand teaching is the first thing the teacher has to buy into the way she's doing it. So, you know, if you're not trained in Montessori and don't know it, then you're going to do what you're comfortable with. And I don't think that's wrong.
Right.
Kids have been learning non-Montessori for years. So it works well for me because I have such a broad spectrum of kids coming to me. I have kids that know nothing because no one's ever taught them. And I have kids that have been homeschooled beautifully who know a lot. I have kids that have been homeschooled horribly that know nothing. And I have kids that have been in preschool for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds and are very well versed in everything. And I support them all. I homeschooled my own children, so I'm not judging any of them. I just have to, I can catch those kids up. If they're 7 and they come to me in first grade, some of them pass the kids that have been there for 3 years within a few months. So I'm just saying, for me though, Montessori is the easiest way to plug them in where they're at and go forward. But I think other environments, I live in the boonies, you know, academics are not very high here, to be honest. So, you know, parents aren't home grilling their kids on their ABCs and their numbers before they send them to school. So,
Gotcha.
So, you know, there may be a few here and there, but that's pretty rare.
So the way like stepping stones and pathways, a lot of the, not suggestions, but what is made available, you could set up as centers while you're working with different groups.
Oh, of course. Sure. That's fine. I just think whatever works for you. You know, if you're Montessori trained, that's kind of the way your mind goes. If you're not, just putting stuff on the shelf or you know, one thing that Montessori does is it'll give lessons and then just say, and these things are available for you over here, but you're not supposed to do it until you've had a lesson. And you would do that the same in a traditional classroom. You would show them how to do something.
Right.
And you can make them, if you can make them do it if you want to by the end of the day or whatever, or it can be there for the week and you can say sometime this week you need to do this, or, you know, it just depends on what works well for you. Other things that I have this is for little kids where they do stringing. I have a puzzle where, I don't know if you can see that it's difficult because they have to, oh, you can't see, sorry. I can't hold it up. Maybe if I do it this way.
No problem.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to, obviously that doesn't match. So this is actually rather hard. So this would be something that would challenge first and second grade. I have a whole set of set sail ocean shaped lacing cards. So this is a ship, and it's got the words on the back in a couple languages.
Okay.
Ship, and then French and Spanish. Here's a whale. They're kind of cutesy, but again, there's a seahorse, a crab, a shark. So again, these can be in a tray on the shelf as something that they can use. One thing I've done is if you go to Walmart, do you have Walmart? I know you do on Maui. I don't know if anybody else does.
We do. Yeah,
But
we do.
they have these chocolate things, but you can pour plaster in them too, plaster of Paris. And so kids love to paint these and put a magnet on the back. You could also have them write the names of these once they did them and match, you know, I mean, once you kind of get the hang of it, you can just go to Walmart and walk the aisles and get all kinds of ideas. This is a fishing rod. I don't know if you can, I'll show you, but this isn't the fishing rod, but you're supposed to take the hook and hook it onto this. Again, it's eye-hand coordination. This can be floating in water in one of those water tables, or they can just be in a bucket. Let's see, you can get tubes of ocean stuff. So I don't remember where I got these, but this is a whole set of, you know, plastic animals. These are the kinds of things that I would put in that tray that had the water or the water beads in it. And again, you could have them match these with pictures or match them with words. You could have them write stories. It's kind of like a dictionary if you have all these words. They don't have to try and spell them, because some kids are really intimidated by that. A long time ago when I was a child, there was a whole God's Wonders of the Deep. It has my mom's stamp on it. But these were Sabbath school stories about she made, and this is a more modern Wonders of the, I guess it's just Wonders of the Sea book. But Mom had all these felts. She colored them years ago.
Wow.
There's you know, you can see she painted them. Anyway, but there's a story that goes along for worship, talking about each one of these animals and drawing a spiritual lesson. You can also get all kinds of stuffed creatures that you can use to decorate or to name or, you know, to label. I have seagulls. You can do, they have Play-Doh. Again, this is a Walmart thing where you just go to Walmart, and cookie cutters are a great thing. This is more early childhood, but obviously the big kids love that, you know. But you can make it for older kids by, here's a star, but it could also be this one looks more like a sea star, but it's a cookie cutter.
Right.
You know, but you could have a day where they actually baked cookies, or you could use Play-Doh, or you can use clay that hardens and they can paint them. So again, if you start going on Pinterest, this is a more modern this isn't Pinterest, but this is a more modern undersea
Oh,
thing.
okay.
It's Betty Lucan's. It's a big felt set. And then there's, I showed you my mom's, but these, you know, these are smaller, but the older kids would like them. They're colored beautifully because they're printed, you know, but there's all these different animals of the ocean. So again, you don't have to do it all the first year, but it, you know, once you do it for a few years, you start collecting things, or you can put them on want lists, and people in your school would donate things. These are little, you know, always be on the lookout for like little cups. So these are plastic, and then here's my little tongs, little tiny tongs. And
Oh, wow.
then I have all these little shells that I know Hawaii does not have tons of shells, but you have some. Anyway, these are all shells that they, you know, will tong from one cup to another one. And little kids like that. It's funny, my older kids, they usually just spend a few minutes. They don't want to do that anymore because it's too easy. But little kids, that's a challenge. But if you just go to any of these stores, Walmart's great. You know, Walmart is in Northwest Arkansas, the headquarters. So it's about, Walmart headquarters is about 20 miles from us. So Walmart's a big thing around here, in Sam's, but it's very well stocked here. And I know on Maui, they had a whole section of Hawaii, Maui stuff that we don't have over here. So they usually have a section for whatever culture you're in. If you're out west, they will have stuff with cacti and, you know, that kind of thing. When we wrote this, we had our meetings in different places. And so we experienced a lot of Walmarts around the country. And we would always find cool things when we went where the story happened, you know. So I know when we went to Alaska, we got some great stuff that, you know, wasn't anywhere else. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else in these boxes that would inspire you, but this is another game, What's Inside the Seashell. That would be for older kids. It's a hidden game thing, and it has cards and activities. It's math-ish. So, you know, there's just tons of, this is an otter, a bunch of different sea stars. Stamps. That's another thing that they can do stories by stamping. And you can get these off of Amazon. You can get them from, you know, I have Amazon Prime, so I don't have to pay for shipping. And it took me a long time to do that. Robin, Jody, I hate filling out it's tedious to me, all the information, but it's just a click. It's bad. You don't want to know.
Right.
Amazon. These are just plates I got at Walmart, but you know, you can put the felts on them, you can put the, you know, just display things. So I'm always on the lookout for, you know, dishes. Here's a bowl that's, you know, goes with those plates. It's got a blue inside. There's a big tray I have. You know, you never find them all at once. These are matching, you know. But you know, just and they'll play those things for hours and hours. See what else is in here. Oh, this is kind of like my Japanese garden. I think that's what that black tray was, where they
Okay.
Rake.
Wow.
Another rake, and then they can make a garden with the sand. And you can just go pick up the sand on the beach, but I know Charity sent me some green sand, so now I have some green sand. But anyway,
cool.
There are just tons of things. But the book, once you kind of get the rhythm of how the books are done, you can add other books. So especially if you're doing it for longer than a month, or long, you know, you're doing more than, you're spending longer on the theme, you probably would want another book to read. But if you look at the beginning of the reading section, let me get there so I will make sense. So it always starts with worship and Bible and goes through a routine, but there's always a phonemic awareness section with ideas for that. And then there's always the sound letter activities, and you can add letters. You'll have to have your own calendar for that. This one is S. So there's a whole bunch of S ideas. And then there's what we call reading workshop, but the reading workshop is always divided into before reading, what you do before you read the book, and then what you do during reading. And sometimes you'll read it more than once. So it'll say during reading the first time, during reading the second time, during reading the third time or the fourth time. And then there's after reading questions usually. And then some extensions a lot of times at the bottom that you do after you've read the book. But I mean, basically you can do that with any book that you picked, whether it was Lehman and the Blue Turtle, or, you don't have to just read, you can expand whatever you're doing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's always a signing in, and we were trying to make a legit way for them to practice their names. So at the beginning of the year, they trace their names in kindergarten, but first grade writes their names. Depends how good the first graders are. Sometimes they trace their names too, or sometimes you print it and then they have to write it beside it. But it's just a sign-in sheet. So when they come in, they sign in that they're there. So it's kind of a reason for them, to practice. And this one gives them some different ideas. Then there's writing workshop, which is all about, young children. And then there's fine motor skills, and then there's listening and speaking. So the language arts section is huge. And that's just for one book. There's no way that you can get this done in a month. I mean, it's not going to happen. So you have to pick what you have, or go on Pinterest and morph into, go down the rabbit trails that are available there. The sky's the limit. I'm a great idea.
Follow the cycles and work accordingly with the stepping stones on the cycles, or?
What do you mean? Sorry,
Well,
obviously no. What do you mean? You mean the for small schools?
So yeah, because there's 4 cycles. This year ends on an even year. So this is the multi-grade for cycle 4. With this one is the pathways connection with by design.
No, to be honest, I have 2 grades. So the only thing I rotate with the cycles is the Bible. So I'm on 2nd grade Bible this year, but everything else, and I'm on 2nd grade science this year. So.
Wait, so you said you teach 1, 2?
Yes.
Oh, see, that's the thing, because Joey does K1. It's almost like she has 2 schools. I mean, yeah.
I know, and I've done that before. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Before that. It's a lot harder to do. I agree.
Yeah.
So,
because I have a teacher friend, she teaches K1, 2, 3, and I'm like, how?
No, that's really hard to do. I agree. So to me, if somebody's done what you're saying in the cycles, that's what you would do. But you could take whatever cycle you were on and do this kind of stuff. That's why I was kind of showing what you could do, because no matter what you're teaching, you can do this kind of stuff for your little guys. It's going to be, there's no way you can do all of this and teach first and second. It's pretty easy to do this and just teach first and add things. And, by design covers a lot of this stuff. So that's one thing I've thought about doing and haven't done, but.
Well, how can you do a combo multi-grade with stepping stone and pathways? Like, can you do that?
Yeah, Jody, my friend, did that some. It would just take a lot of work to match it all up, or you just have different times of the day where if you're doing just kindergarten and first grade, you would teach. They have to read on level, so obviously you have to have some reading program other than pathways and other than you know what I mean? So you're going to be teaching that. So when you're teaching comprehension, you can teach it from pathways or from stepping stones. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You would, again, for me, the part of teaching that I hate is all the record keeping. I love the creative and I never have a problem figuring out what to teach them or morphing off into ideas of how to teach this at an easier level or a more difficult level. But, finances are not a huge deal for me. So I just go on Amazon if I need something and get the next thing, which I know a lot of small schools don't have that, option. So it's harder for them. But there are a lot of black lines in this. And I also think we made this all the way up for 7-year-olds. So there are a lot of things in here that are way too hard. In fact, Jody and Rob were very happy when the first year that we did this, I didn't have kindergarten and all my stuff was too hard. And they confessed later, oh, we're so glad you have kindergartners now because I made it easier. And then when I got pre-Kers, they were even happier because then there's some 5-year-olds that are very immature. So we got better at putting really easy stuff in there. But I always wrote the harder stuff because my kids that were doing it were a little bit older. Or I had way more first and second graders than I ever had pre-K and kindergarten. So my room tended to be designed more for the upper graders. But I think to answer your question, whether you're there are some things in here I just saw, it was talking about things that Pathways has changed a lot. Pathways 2.0, I'm just going to be brutally honest, it's way too hard for my kids. So if I start out first grade Pathways, they're wanting them to read sentences. I'm happy if my kids can read phonetically words. So I don't know. I do actually know. She's my superintendent. She's my union supervisor who redid Pathways 2.0, but she grew up in Keene and apparently they have very academic kindergartens because she's having them do stuff that my kids can't do till way down the line. So I read the Pathways books, but I make up my own stuff because my kids can't do what she wants them to do, sadly. So I've not made a big deal about it. I'm nearing more the end of my career rather than rewriting, but I like the old Pathways that I was more involved in, I think was more age appropriate, because that's just, I wouldn't throw out, I desperately wanted the 2.0 because I was getting rid of kindergarten and trying to get organized all my stuff into first and second grade. So I got it the very first year and I was disappointed because it was so difficult, and I found that my kids just couldn't, the expectations were very high. So I went back to using my Montessori phonics and I used my Montessori spelling, and it's all from Washika. It looks like Waseka, but you can Google it, W-A-S-C-A, W-A-S-C-A. Anyway, they have some amazing stuff. If you have questions about it, I'll tell you, they have a whole phonics program, very hands-on, a whole spelling program, very multigrade friendly, where you don't have to give spelling tests again. They're all pictures. I just love it. So
that sounds great. W-A-S-C-A.
It's W-A-S-E-C-A, Waseka. It's pronounced Washika, but it's Waseka.
Okay,
it looks like.
Real quick, have you had to adjust a lot to integrate Marzano research and MAPS assessment, since that's the new thing from NAD?
Say what?
Have you had to integrate the new things that you're required to do, like the Marzano research, the standard-based stuff, And the MAPS
We're
assessment?
we're just starting that right now. So
Okay.
we are supposed to get trained. I leave for training in August. And we had some training this year online, but I'll just be honest. I was swamped this year. I was like a newbie teacher because I wasn't doing Montessori and I had this new math program and I was teaching from TVs from the front of the room. And anyway, I didn't go to all the online stuff. I was having a hard time grading all the papers at home at night. We always do it during the day and they make them. Anyway, I was swamped, to put it mildly. So probably not up on it. My kids did really well on the MAP testing and math this past year, but I know we're going to, I have the book, but I haven't read it, the standards-based learning. So.
Okay. So when you when you start the school year, what do you do your own assessment? Because you want to know where they are.
In Montessori, I do. Yeah. We have a math assessment for Montessori and we have a phonics assessment for Montessori. And I use I think it's I want to say Jimmy John's, but it's not. It's something John's. Anyway, it's the old Pathways. We have that. What's his name? I can't think of it. It's Jimmy John's is a restaurant. And that's what's in my brain. It's something John's. Anyway, I have that assessment for reading that tells me where they are. I also just have, sight word assessments and my kids, unless they've come completely from home, my kids usually can read phonetically when they come to me. They just can't read everything else. I don't know about yours, but.
Okay. Have you ever used Slosson, Slosson?
It sounds familiar.
It's just word-based, Dosh word or whatever. I
have. I mean, I have in the past, but I kind of switched to the Montessori stuff now.
Okay.
Kind of what happens if you're in our system, our kindergarten teacher starts them on our Montessori phonics and they just continue on. She comes in and gets them when they're ready. And we've already passed them in first and second. So we just share the same set of Washika stuff. So they're drawers and she just gets the red drawers and uses them in kindergarten. So we use the Montessori for the phonics and the spelling, but they're Washika. One thing nice about Washika is you can print them off. You don't have to buy theirs. I mean, you do have to buy it, but it's a lot less expensive if you want to go to the work of printing it all. So they have a whole reading system that goes with it. So that's what I use for my leveled readers is the Washika stuff. So
how do you spell that? Okay.
WASECA. Sorry. Okay. And if you look at Washika biomes, she does everything. Yeah, it'll be easier to find if you look up Wash.
Okay.
Wow, this is a great site.
They are my favorite. I've just started buying everything. They have a whole solar system set that starts out for first grade. I don't know if you can see. I'll try to get it.
Yeah, I love their site already.
Those are things that last forever, and there's cards that teach you about, all the different planets.
Oh yeah, I think Celeste ordered from them, or she showed me.
It's a circle.
Site.
This is a picture of the phonics drawers, and underneath are the spelling sections. What I love about the spelling is the spelling lesson is one like short A. But then it has a picture of a cat and a rat and a bat, and I, think of some more short A words. But anyway, you don't have to give them the words. They practice by looking at the picture and filling in the vowel, and then they look at the picture and write the whole word. And by the end of the week, they just look at the picture and take the test. Right. The cool thing is I have some kids that are taking 2 or 3 tests a week, and I have some kids that are doing just one. But they can go at their own speed, but I don't have to give all those lovely spelling tests. So it's really would be really good for you, JoJo, because multigrade, it's
Right,
perfect.
right.
So I fell in love with that. I really missed.
Can we look at this one? I want to get this one. Look at this. This is a mat for the floor.
I know. I was just gonna. I got that.
Wow.
This year.
Oh, you
That's
did?
funny. I did. Well, they have an
Awesome.
ocean one
Oh, they do?
that I'm working on right now. You can see right here, but it has all these animals, and the animals are printed on wood, so they're very realistic. But then it has cards that tell about all the animals, and it has another thing that Montessori does that would be helpful for you, but like verbs are represented by a circle because that shows movement, and a little circle is an adverb. But like nouns are triangles, so a big black triangle is a noun, but adjectives and articles are little triangles. And so those, anyway, but they're also color coded. So this thing right here, whoa, sorry, this mat, which this is a terrible picture of the mat. I'm sorry, but the mat is a picture of the ocean like a coral reef, but it has words that it has black words that are nouns, and it has red words that are verbs, and you know what I mean? But they can build sentences without having to spell
That
anything.
is awesome.
So I just love this, I mean, because it's so individualized. So, you can easily, that's why I'm just not so gung-ho on the Pathways 2.0, because it's too hard. And it also, to me, is not sequential enough, and so they are not successful and they get frustrated. Whereas this is very little step by step. So they have, you just start with nouns, and, they'll, or 3 words, they'll just say the starfish sits, or, eats, or,
Right.
they have to put the little shapes over the top. But I'll give them words that they choose from. Anyway, again, all this costs money. So I realized none of it's something, unless you get a grant or something, none of it is very doable all at once. So literally, I've been teaching at the school for over 20 years. So just every year, instead of books, I just, buy a couple more things, or I use my room funds from home and school and just buy another thing. So it's not cheap, but I use that 5 mil laminating. Are you familiar with that? You can get a laminator that just does a page at a time.
Yes.
And,
yes.
And if you get 5 mil instead of 3 mil, it's really hard. And I laminate everything with 5 mil, and it's pretty interesting.
Well, that's what I've been doing. Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
So
just
I don't
laminating everything.
Yeah, and that just makes everything last. So, literally, this will be my 22nd year, and just last year, I rebought the math cards. But I mean, that's 20 years of use. So, it wasn't right. Before last, but they just last. And I had not used 5 mil. This time I did, but they also have readers. I don't know, you can see them, but the actual books don't have pictures, so they have to read it without any picture clues, but they also have a picture and the same words that they have to match. And then there's one that's a book that you can print off their website that they have to draw the picture for. So those are leveled readers, but those go with all the continents. They, instead of dividing them by political states, they divide them up in biomes. So the biomes of the world. So that's what each color represents a different level of difficulty. But here's I don't know if you can see it. Can you see the ocean one there? I hit something. There's a big one. That's the mat. So the mats are
beautiful.
So they're pretty indestructible. They're silk screened onto cloth. So
That might be good for Joey to get too, and then she cycles that.
Oh, I
Yeah.
agree. And the volcano one, I was going to bring them to show you guys. I just need to make sure that we can't do this over the phone. Apparently you guys aren't, I understand, but the tickets are ridiculous from here right now. So if I can truly help, I don't mind coming, but they're like $700 or $800, and then you have to get COVID tests.
Wow.
So you'd probably do better with me talking to you and sending you that money than me coming. I don't mind coming, but I'm not coming for me. I've been to Hawaii and I love it, but I would be really coming to help you. So unless there is something specific that I could help you with, I don't want to just come and.
Yeah. You know what, Kay, we do want you here for sure, but especially at a time when we can all afford it and just make the most of it. I mean, I'm sure, like you said, you can come anytime.
Yeah,
we should just do a field trip too. That's what we should do.
Yeah, maybe we should just do
go
that.
there. She's got her classroom and she's got all that there.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
I'm open to whatever. So
Okay.
I just want to be the most helpful that I can. And
Okay.
if you don't have stuff ready for me I can go shopping with you at Walmart if that's helpful. We can also probably do that with a phone and FaceTime. We're realizing those things. So I guess I just need to know, I need to know exactly what you need and how I can help. And some of it I might be able to do better there. Some of it I might actually be able to do better here if I email and, have access to stuff here. I'm curious to know, I'm pretty sure I can buy stuff on my thing and just send them to you again, maybe there's different rules for Hawaii. I don't know, for Amazon and that kind of thing. Or Washington. I don't know if they're going to charge me $20 to send you something or not.
Well, but the thing is, if Joey's going to be in Tennessee in August, and if she knows, hopefully by then she knows her theme for this coming school year, no pressure, Joey, but we could go shopping with her in Tennessee because it's a different Walmart from Hilo,
Oh, right. Sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joey.
So, Kate, stepping stones is basically all content areas specifically for kindergarten.
It is.
Right?
Yes, except that it has stuff.
Pathways would be first and second.
Right. There are many things in there that are appropriate for first and second, but you have to know your standards-based learning or your scope and sequence. That's what we use to know what you're supposed to teach. I've taught first and second grade for so long. I have a pretty good feel for, what I can do with this subject, but that's from experience. So I don't know how long, how much of probably having the standards would be helpful, or having the scope and sequence would be helpful, and then just start matching those up from the big picture.
Right.
And,
Right.
So, again, that can take a long time.
And then when you did, like K1, did you use stepping stones as the overall general and just beef it up as needed? Or would you look at both stepping stones and pathways and try to mesh it? What worked for you?
What I did was for science and Bible and social studies, I used stepping stones. And for reading, I would use, for kindergarten, I would use stepping stones, and I use pathways for first and second. Although sometimes I would read the theme books to everybody for science or social studies, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then I've always read and used Montessori, to be honest. So I always had a phonics program that my kindergarten and first and second graders were all going through. Does that make sense? So these were more supplementary activities that I put on the shelf. They were not what I was depending on to teach them phonics. Does that make sense? It's all here.
Yeah. So you're
everybody,
right.
Yeah. It's in here, but you have to use it all to get it all, which is a problem.
So you would, right, so you would pick and choose. You wouldn't solely do everything according to stepping stones and pathways. You would, what you're saying is you use it as a supplement.
Yeah, I'm kind of a, I don't know, I guess maverick or whatever. I've always kind of compiled my own thing. I mean, I'm Montessori, which is not NAD, but I love the Bible program, and I like the old Life series. I just barely have given up the Life series for my basal reader. I finally got rid of them because I kept going back to it because it was familiar and the kids liked it and it worked. So I still am not completely thrilled, even with the Washika stuff. Washika's great and the content is great, but it's very science and social study. And what I liked about the old Life series was it was a big variety of genre for, all the interests of the kids. And Washika is very, like I said, science and social studies, and not very story-ish, But anyway, I like Pathways. The problem with Pathways in the younger grades is that they can't read the text. I mean, maybe you're a first grader can, but they can't read the text. And you got to read in first grade or you're not going to learn to read. So it's a great story, and it can teach comprehension, but it doesn't teach them to read. So you have to have another whole program to teach them to read, in my opinion. So
yeah, the content of the books, it's great, but it's not beginning reader, emergent reader friendly.
No, and I've always had a problem with that. Like starting in third or fourth, Pathways, I was part of that development team, but I came in the second year, so they'd already picked it, and I helped write a third grade DLG that summer, and then I went from that DLG to Stepping Stones Kindergarten. So it kind of morphed. They were picking behind me at the table behind me. They were trying to pick the books for the core books for kindergarten. And as I was sitting there, I was just groaning at the books that they were using. And so at the end of the summer, I went to the head person and I said, this is just wrong. These are terrible books. And, anyway, so she brought me back the next year and said, okay, you be in charge. And she had a new person, Rob, and I, who started picking the books and making it the whole, curriculum. So I was only on Pathways for a while because for that one summer, but it was made for 5th and 6th graders. The company that we copied, I can't remember its name, but anyway, they had I think it was Kendall Hunt, but they had a series where you used a theme book and read it all month to learn all these reading strategies, but it wasn't a 1st and 2nd grade thing. And they were trying to make it that way, and there wasn't near enough support. And now they've redone it, but in my opinion, they've made it way too hard. So it isn't beginning reading stuff,
Right. Yeah.
If you're a normal at the end of 2nd grade, they start reading the books, and I feel like it's useful. And sometimes really good readers can read some of the 1st grade books, but we just read them over and over and over and teach sight words. But I have something else going on all the time because they can't read them. They're too hard.
Right.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
No, it does. And then as far as Bible, do you use Encounter at all?
I do. I did the training for Encounter, and if you're not going to do this, if you're going to do this, like I said or suggested, in a cycle and only use half of it one year and half of it another, Rob did a phenomenal job. And if you have the big books, but there's not enough Bible for the whole to do it for the whole. I mean, that's the one thing that doesn't have lots of extra. You know what I mean? You can make it last for a week, but you can't read that Bible story more than that. So
Right.
I don't want to say throw out this Bible because I absolutely love it, but Rob loves the encounter. It's very much the way we wrote Stepping Stones as far as a relationship with Jesus and encountering him. So I teach the first and second grade Bible. Obviously I don't have kindergarten, but you can
Right.
choose, I guess. You know, first grade Bible. Are you familiar with Encounter?
Yeah. I really like Encounter.
I do too. So, you know, you may decide that that's depending how many kindergartners you have.
Right.
This is very experiential. Stepping Stones is. So that's probably what it has over Encounter. Encounter is experiential too, but it's for first grade, not for kindergartners. So a lot of the things they do here, you know, one thing you can do is do this for worship maybe, and then do Encounter Bible with everyone. I don't know.
Right.
I don't think you have enough time to do 2 Bibles, but I hate to throw this away because I love this. I mean, I truly just really like this Bible program. And my kids loved it too, but my kids love Encounter. So you just kind of have to choose, I guess, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. Right. Now I was just curious about what you did and how you felt about it.
No, I love Encounter. I know Linnell, and she's the one that wrote it and have been to week long. I did train the trainer with her, and you know, she's spot on with the Encounter. It's great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the program and what they have available, and the fact that you can kind of pick and choose, you know what, but they have so much available for teachers to be able to pick and choose. So I appreciate that about it, and that it's so hands-on and built around a relationship. So but yeah, unfortunately there's nothing for kindergarten.
No.
So
I think they didn't want to take this because they had spent so much money on those big books and, you know, all of that. They didn't want to throw this away because it hadn't been used that long. So I'm sure that's why they didn't do it.
Right.
But I love Encounter. I have nothing bad to say about it. It's perfect. So, you know, I don't know what you do unless you did like a 3-year cycle where you did kindergarten 1 year and you did first grade 1 year and you did, I guess you don't, well, if you only have first grade, I guess you'd only have a 2-grade cycle. So you could do Stepping Stones 1
so that would work.
And do first grade
and then
Genesis to Joseph the next year. Yeah, that would work. So again, you just have to.
This has been so helpful. This has been so helpful. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You can call me anytime. I'm happy to talk. I love curriculum development, and I'm full of ideas. So
Yes, you are. And I'm so excited to plan in the near future. Did Celeste already talk to you about a next meeting with her and her project? Or I don't know if she's at work already.
No, she has not.
Okay. So she might be driving, or she's
I probably was talking too much. That's why she didn't get a chance.
She can text me or call me. I'm home. So, you know, I'm available now. I'm not going anywhere. So I don't mind paying the $700 if that would be something that is, if there's really something for me to do. So, but I'm not thinking of it as a vacation for me at all. I would want to have something to do all day, every day, you know, whatever. And I'm happy to do that. I just want to make sure that there really is stuff to do. So you guys need to talk about that and decide how I can be the most helpful.
And no,
sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. God bless you.
Okay, likewise. Enjoy.
Nice meeting you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Nice meeting you too.
Okay. Bye.